enemies. And as you go through her skill tree,
and it actually, sorry, it gets really cool, but we're looking at Wilhelm right now, I realize, so let's switch gears real quick and talk about Wilhelm, because now, oh wait, are we playing as, it looks like we're playing as Athena.
No, you're Wilhelm.
Celestial Enforcer.
Yeah.
That's the Wilhelm class. All right, so let's talk Wilhelm. Sorry.
It's all right. Yeah, you know, so fans from Borderlands 2 will know that Wilhelm was really like the first big boss fight. We kind of built him up as being this like this really dangerous enemy, and you know, you fight him, and he's this massive guy that's more machine than man.
Yeah, he's not a dude, like in any way in Borderlands 2.
Head with a robot body.
He's like a huge loader.
Right, but we didn't want to start off with him that way in the pre-sequel. We want to kind of show like an evolution with him. And also we wanted to kind of give something for the players to be invested in. So he starts off more man than machine now. But depending on where you put your skill points, you can actually put physical augments on him that will replace parts of his body. So you can get stronger legs, you can get a pneumatic arm that will kind of shoot out and punch. You get the Vengeance Cannon, which is a big thing on his shoulder that was shooting death at you in BL2. So you have this sort of option, this opportunity to transform him into that guy.
Yeah, you know? and it reflects on his character model. You know, you see it, you see the robo arm come out, which is really satisfying, by the way.
It's not just that. It's that whenever you actually put the skill points into him, you will see him immediately change in the menu. So players can see how their choices are impacting him.
And we just saw the arm right there punching apart one of these. I would keep wanting to call them moonskags, but there's actually another name for them.
Yeah, these are the Kragans. They're these moon beasts, and because this is Borderlands, you know, they kind of absorb elemental attributes from the moon. In this particular map, you'll see we have this liquid methane, which does kind of cryo damage to the player. And these Kragans are the same. They can kind of shoot cryo damage towards you, and it's really cool. You'll see here, when you see some of the bigger ones like the Avalanche, they actually burst into smaller little mini Kragans that then come to attack you. And sometimes our designers, I don't know how deep they actually take it, how many times you can shoot them to how many Kragans actually come out to attack you.
Yeah, you come across a badass Kragon, you might be getting into a real Russian nesting doll situation.
Exactly. Which is really cool because you might go in and you see one of them, and players will initially go, oh, it's just 1-on-1, no problem. But then it becomes 2-on-1, then 4-on-1, then 6-on-1. Depending on how big they are, it could get really big.
And we're taking a look at footage from the PC version of Borderlands, the pre-sequel now. I can tell that because there's all of these particles flying everywhere, and that, which is really satisfying, they freeze the enemy with cryo damage, and then they smash apart and like the low gravity float away.
You can do that to any enemy. We built this system to procedurally freeze baddies, and then you do a bit more damage if you melee them, but you can shatter them through bullets as well. But just any enemy, once you get them down low enough, you can then burst them open. Yeah, it is pretty beautiful seeing the ice shards kind of float off into the distance.
Something that Joel and his team did a really awesome job on is like the way that they shatter also. It's not just about the fact that they procedurally shatter, it's that they will shatter along the trajectory that you killed them. So if you slam down on them, the particles are going to go down to the ground and then off to the side. If you're cutting them, then they will cut in half and break off into chunks that way. Whatever direction you shot them from, they will shatter that direction. It's really cool.
Well, let's talk about that phrase you just used, slam down on them, because this is something that's new to Borderlands, and I think you actually misspoke, and you meant to say butt stomp.
Oh, that's what Joel likes.
I mean, I don't want to correct you. It's a little embarrassing, but...
Again, I get the designers hate me when I go home because it's called a slam, but I have to call it a butt stomp. That's just what naturally comes to me. But like, when you are in low gravity, you can see you're jumping like, 30, 50 feet. Even sometimes you can get hundreds of feet up into the air. I don't actually know what a foot is. We use the metric system in Australia, but I think it's really high.
It sounds high.
You're jumping these massive distances, going really far, and you can hold the crouch button and you butt stomp. You slam down to the ground. You do this area of effect attack. And you can actually apply like elemental damage. So if you jump from high enough, because the higher you actually do it from, the more damage you're going to inflict. You can actually jump down, slam, freeze an enemy, and shatter them in one go. And if you manage to land on top of someone, you actually split them down the middle and see just their ice particles kind of float out.
Now I'm just picturing you guys having some kind of screenshot contest and see what kind of sculptures you're making with the shattered shards of your enemies.
Yeah.
So don't tell me if you don't do that. I want to live in that fantasy world where that's a thing. Now you're being shot with lasers here. Lasers is sort of a new, what you call it, a weapon type?
Yeah, it's a completely new
ammo type?
weapon type.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a new ammo type for lasers as well. It goes across the entire weapon spectrum. So because of the procedural weapon system in Borderlands, you know, you have this ridiculous amount of lasers. You now have each of the manufacturers have their different attributes. So you have your beams, you have your bolt lasers, you have different reload types and everything. They can also have elemental damage attached to them. So you can have like an ice beam where you can be shooting this kind of Ghostbuster style beam at someone and freeze them and then see them shatter at the same time.
Well, you said Ghostbusters, and now I have no doubt that there's going to be some mission somewhere in the game where you guys just lean real heavy into the Ghostbusters references. We got a question coming in over Twitter from Darkblade12, wondering about, will there be new legendary items in the pre-sequel? And of course, that loot collection, so integral to Borderlands. What are you guys doing with the pre-sequel?
Yeah, I mean, we're not, no, in addition to adding the elemental and in addition to adding lasers, we're also adding new gear in general. So players can expect to have, you know, new uniques from missions and bosses and new legendaries as well.
Excellent. Let's talk about, we talked about Wilhelm and sort of, you know, the Wolf Saint drones we see. They're active, flying around right now, and just disappeared. Let's talk quickly about the other active skills you guys have talked about, because of course, that's what makes a Vault Hunter. That's one of the main things that makes each character unique is that skill. We were talking about Athena before, her shield, the Aspis, which can absorb damage. The thing I really liked about it is it absorbs elemental damage if you get the right perk, and just creates these concentric rings that look really cool.
Yeah, that was actually something that we very recently added to the game, so it was cool for me to see it in the demo as well, where you can get ice and shock and fire and deal it back, and if you get the Wrath of the Goddess skill, you can ricochet it across multiple enemies, set them on fire, electrocute them all at the same time. As you said, Wilhelm has his two drones, Wolf and Saint, so the way his skill trees work, the left one is all about upgrading Wolf, who's kind of an attack drone, so you can give him, you know, make him stay alive longer, or give him missile barrages. You can get him to kind of kamikaze as your action skill runs out. The right skill kind of levels up Saint, who buffs you and heals you. You also can do more damage through elemental, and when you're in low gravity, jumping and things. In the center one side of a commando, as James was saying, is all about turning you into that robot that you were in Borderlands 2.
Yeah, and then the other two Vault Hunters we mentioned, Claptrap, who you guys are keeping your traps clapped about as of now. Maybe Gamescom, we'll hear a little bit more about it.
I mean, people should definitely stay tuned because you know, we're going to be showing more of the game.
I think we're actually going to invent an entire new games convention just for Claptrap, actually. Is that right?
Seems like he deserves it. And then the fourth, Nisha, the Lawbringer class, who you guys are also not talk too much about, but I presume it's some sort of pistol-related dual-wield thing based on what we've seen of her in the demos, which hasn't been too much.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously building off of the characters that people know. I think people can infer a good deal about her.
And so, yeah, characters people know. You got, you know, a lot of these, you know, all of these Vault Hunters have had some appearance in Borderlands before, but in the trailer you guys released last week, we caught a glimpse of Lilith. You know, I think it's safe to say, like, a bunch of original Vault Hunters. We saw Moxie. A bunch of the characters are going to be back for the sequel, pre-sequel.
Yeah. We have a lot of really, I think, cool teases in the trailer that people pay keen eye. They can notice quite a bit in there.
Yeah, being set in between Borderlands 1 and 2, there's a lot of story to tell, like not just for Jack and the Vault Hunters, but there's a lot of kind of gaps in characters' timelines, and there's a lot of fan service in there.
All right, well, we're going to be wrapping up in a little bit now, but let's talk about something we haven't really gotten into. We talked a bit about low gravity and sort of how you can get to these heights and do the slam move down. But let's talk about oxygen. That's the O2 is the third bar you see there in the bottom left corner, because that's a resource you got to be mindful of now, and it's also a tool you can use to fuel a couple abilities.
Yeah, so we had an idea in mind of what the moon would be like. You know, we wanted to be similar to our moon because we always kind of imagined it being that way. And so we know that would involve thin atmosphere. And so we wanted people to feel that danger of running out of oxygen. But we also wanted to not be this annoying resource that you constantly have to manage. So like, yeah, you are losing oxygen, but we have plenty of opportunities, like that crack in the ground with that sort of shimmering effect of it. That's releasing oxygen all the time. So if a player sees one of those, they can easily refill. We also want the oxygen to kind of feel purposeful, you know. So we want it to be fun. So that's why we added in things like the slam attack and the double jump, the extended jump. There's actually been something that we showed a little bit of in the demo, which is that you can actually revive your other co-op buddies with oxygen. And so we wanted to kind of create some meaningful decision that you can do with this new feature.
Yeah, we want to go across the entire game. I mean, the enemies, they have to have oxygen as well. You can burst the domes which go over their head, so it kind of brings a lot of tactics into play of how you want to encounter different spaces, because you aren't going to burn, enemies aren't going to burn when you're in vacuum, so you can decide to bring oxygen in there. And if you have a really good laser that does fire damage, then you're definitely going to want to turn that on.
Very cool. Well, it looks like you guys are really doing a lot to, you know, preserve that thing that makes those things that make Borderlands the Borderlands we know and love, but also bring some new stuff in. I imagine that's a bit of a challenge for you guys, but you seem up to it. Thanks for coming on.